Checo Perez's dad must be Nostradamus. There must be something he knows that we don't. Over the past couple of weeks, lest we forget, he's come out and said once Checo Perez has himself a decent set of wheels, a car commensurate to win races and championships, he will therefore win championships, will his son Checo Perez. He said for the longest time that Red Bull have been sabotaging Checo Perez, that there is no way in hell that Maximilian Verstappen, 3 soon-to-be 4-time champion, could beat Checo Perez so roundly, so comprehensively. But for sabotage at the hands of Red Bull being at play. And today, it gets even techier than techie things. Red Bull are prone for a cheeky soundbite, are they not, that is controversial? Please see as Exhibit A on Dr. Helmut Marconi's comments around South America. Didn't even know where Mexico was in the world, the appropriate territory or continent. He, of course, said of Checo Perez that the dude lacks focus. Not because that's his way, nor is that his personality, but because he is of Mexican heritage. What are we doing, Dr. Helmut Marko? Dude from a different era, indeed a relic. He doesn't understand political correctness, nor does he understand how to navigate through these waters that are his drivers and current affairs and politics without saying something that's xenophobic. X number 1. X number 2. Of course, many moons ago, there was a chap called PK, not too bad a driver, so I hear, 3-time champion once upon a time, father of the missus of one Maximilian Verstappen, and he said some controversial things not too many moons ago, didn't he, about one Sir Lewis Carl Davidson Hamilton. What are we doing here? Again, it just feels like there is something endemic, emblematic within that Red Bull team, where as far as controversy and polemic circumstances, they are like moths to a flame. They can't even help themselves. Checo Perez's father has gone and raised them. Literally said, I will see you that and raise you this. Because today he's talked about Ralf Schumacher, hasn't he? In disparaging terms, in homophobic language. How are we here, ladies and gentlemen? Well, we're here because F1 has been nothing if not exclusive. They say all this inclusivity that we race as one, diversity, inclusion, and F1 for the longest time, ladies and gentlemen, has been anything but across gender, sexuality, racial lines, social, economic, cultural, the lot, all of the aforementioned. And Checo Perez's daddy is upping the stakes, is he not? And of course he's got an axe to grind with all of the world's media who have called the circumstance exactly as it is as far as Checo Perez is concerned. He has been woeful this year. They held on to him with a view to extract the best out of him around Singapore and Baku, the only 2 tracks that you can guarantee performance from Checo Perez. This dude being a rear limited specialist, is he not? Mr. Understeer, Mr. Tyre Management. Singapore wasn't too bad. Baku, he was rubbish. What are we doing? Checo Perez, for the avoidance of doubt, all season long has spent more time in the barrier than he has taking checkered flags and accruing points for Red Bull in what is, by the way, a championship winning car. And this has to mean something, ladies and gentlemen. Checo Perez has to take some corn in this, take some responsibility, have a word in the accountability bureau, for the avoidance of that, if I can pronounce my words. So fuming am I at this circumstance. The one thing people say, some aficionados say, has been holding Checo Perez in place isn't his performance. How could it be? Material underperformance settings each and every single race weekend. It is his sponsorship deals. So some say that he brings anywhere between 20 and 30 million US dollars into that team every single year. Lest we forget that his name, courtesy of the Mexican heritage, sells a lot of energy drinks in North and South America. Of course it would, and that has to count for something. So too the merch sales. Money is ultimately front and centre of all of Red Bull's decision making. It has to be. And I would contend, therefore, that but for the aforementioned financial resources that Checo Perez brings into the team, as at the time of riding, he would have been gone, se acabó, kaput ages ago, no te rindas, cabron. That was the name of the documentary that chronicled all of the resilience and adversity that Checo Perez has overcome season and career to date. That, ladies and gentlemen of the F1 jury, is one of the key reasons why Christian Horner and Dr. Helmut Marko could not sack that dude after the summer break as intended. This is all important, and the reason why I say all of this is to say this. Antonio Perez, Checo's father, today, when giving an interview, talking on the circumstance, speaking about Ralf Schumacher, who's been open and honest in his criticism of his son. He had this to say of Ralf Schumacher, who, by the way, had said that Checo Perez should have been gone. He's a million miles behind his teammate in the same car, one Maximilian Verstappen, 3, soon to be 4-time champion. Therefore, why does he deserve to still have a drive? Said Ralf Schumacher, brother of the goatiest one they call Michael. Here's what Antonio Perez had to say. He said there was a driver, come F1 journalist, who said, first of all, that Checo Perez was done from Red Bull. He declared that he would lose his seat at Red Bull. Then, the following week, said F1 journalist, says Antonio Perez, Checo Perez's dad. Then, said journalist, the next week he came out the closet. Perez's dad continues, you don't know if he's a journalist, a woman or a man. First he declares that Checo's out the car. The following week he comes out, I don't know if he was in love with Checo. What are we doing here? What are we doing? Can't you just disagree with what that dude said about your son? And I know it's personal, but do we need to swim in homophobic waters? Why is it always hateful? Such a lazy, low-hanging trope for Antonio Perez to delve into. It's nonsense, and there are threads at which we need to pull here. Of course, there is such a thing as ethnocentric. The rules, the cultural rules by which they play in Mexico and South America and North America are very different. This is always the way around the world, is it not? And this has to absolutely be accounted for, but yet and still, hate is hate. F1 has done its best over the past 24, 36 months to rid itself of this hateful cape that so characterised it in historic periods. But now look, this dude, Checo Perez's dad, is coming out and saying this. What are we doing here? I don't understand. Checo Perez's dad surely doesn't understand that the one thing, the tenuous link, the thread holding his son in a seat is, of course, the financial resources. And what else could you do better to jeopardise the sponsorship of your son? Yes, there is Kit Kat. Yes, there is Carlos Slim money. But do you think they want this? Do you think Checo Perez needs this smoke at this juncture with 3 races to go, trailing his teammate by guess how many points? 242. What are we doing? You can barely believe it. Beggars belief, eh? Max Verstappen, with 3 races remaining, has 393 points. 400 as near as makes no difference. The Mexican Minister of Defense, 151 points. That's a delta of 242 points, ladies and gentlemen. What are we doing? What are we doing? That's a lick of 11.5 points per race, ladies and gentlemen, that Max Verstappen is outscoring this fella. Now, people will say I'm hating on the Mexican Minister of Defense, that once upon a time he was a brilliant driver, that he's got a different car, doesn't have the same machinery underneath him. I'm calling bull feathers on all of the aforementioned. This is nonsense. He's got to do better than that. This is a difference. Not in kinds, but of extents. 242 points. Now, I put forth the following supposition as we round third base. There is no way that Checo Perez can continue as a going concern in 2025 with the likes of Colapinto circling, with Carlos Sainz still rumoured to have a clause in his contract that means that he can null and void his Williams contract before he's even turned the wheel. There are some serious drivers around, some young, hungry lions that Red Bull, Christian Horner can lift and drop into that Checo Perez seat, particularly Colapinto, if he comes with that same Carlos Slim sponsorship. Checo Perez, what he doesn't need now more than ever is to jeopardise that sponsorship money, because indeed that's the thread holding him in this drive for now. Don't jeopardise it, Checo Perez. Checo Perez's old man, Antonio Perez Garibay. Don't jeopardise your son's future. He doesn't need it. Now more than ever, he's jeopardised it already by dint of his not insubstantial underperformance season to date. He's done nothing over the past 24, 36 months. Zero, zip. He should be gone already by virtue of some very fortuitous circumstances and the fact that the racing gods and the financial gods has been smiling down upon your son. He still has a drive. Again, I say for the avoidance of doubt though, Daddy Perez, he doesn't need anything else, no more troubles to jeopardise that. That comment, unacceptable. Checo Perez, as far as jeopardising his future as a Red Bull driver, as a going concern into 2025, Antonio Perez Garibay is doing a good enough job on his own. Ladies and gentlemen of the F1 jury, what are we doing here?